Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in this video, we are going to be taking a look at some of the champions that come to mind when maybe they don't grade out super god tier on a tier list, but if you are a newer player or even a mid-game player, it is important for you to know that you may want to deeply consider making sure to keep a copy of them on your account, even though they may not be awesome on a tier list. So we're going to be giving that a little bit of context and talking about the ones that come to my mind when I'm thinking about that subject. So let's get into it. Alrighty, and as we dive into the first one, just a quick reminder that right now there is a temporary bump for today and tomorrow. Down below, you can get 30% off on some G Fuel using the promo code CHOSEN via the link down below. But okay, as we dive into the list of these champions that come to my mind on this topic, they're not going to be in any certain order, like number 10 through number 1. We're just going to go through and talk about the ones that come to mind in this situation of maybe champions that aren't god tier, but you don't want to food them. You want to make sure you keep a copy of them on your account. And Paragon is obviously one of the first that come to mind in this discussion because of this ability right here, damage control. When you get this booked, you can see here it's going to go from a 4-turn to a 2-turn cooldown, and it places unkillable on a target ally for 2 turns. So I would say the most notable situation where this is used, and I've actually got a dedicated video on this. I'll try to remember the link right there. You can actually cheese the final boss of Nightmare in 12-7 of the campaign to finish and complete your mission in terms of clearing all of the campaign stages. You can do it with like Tyrell and Paragon just by kind of cheesing it with a certain build. So that video is over there if you want to check that out. But yep, Paragon is probably worth keeping a copy on your account. And as we dive into Painkeeper here, the next one, I do want to note, I'm not really going to be talking about legendaries here. You should always be keeping legendaries on your account. Not to mention, you just never know when they're going to get rebalanced or be buffed or be good for future content. But also, we're supposed to be getting a dupe system in the game soon. So that goes without saying. Keep the good champions, obviously, and then keep a copy of all of your legendaries for sure. But also, Painkeeper is in arguably the best composition in the game for the clan boss. It's autoable after 1 turn, and it can 1-key Ultra Nightmare. You've got like Seeker, Painkeeper, Maneater as the core 4, built around a DPS like Fane, Rosin, Draco, Bellinor, stuff like that. So you definitely want to keep a Painkeeper. And also not only 1, but 2 Maneaters, so you will have that strategy available to you if you ever want to build it for the clan boss. Next up, I'm going to talk about Skullsworn really quickly. Now this is kind of an exception because he does pair with a legendary in terms of the context I want to talk about this. Because Skull Lord Vargal right here has a passive called Skull Brood, revives Skullsworn with 50% HP and 50% turn meter at the start of every single turn. And if there are multiple Skullsworns, it will only revive one of them. So what you'll see is some people pair that tandem, Skull Lord Vargal, and then that trash rare Skullsworn, and just go ahead and cheese the boss because it's that hard-hitting boss that ignores defense. But you can have the Skullsworn tank the damage, get revived every time by Vargal, and you can brute force it to get that 3-star to complete the Lizard faction. I actually did that for my first time around back like over a year ago when I finished Lizard for the first time. I did use the Skull Lord Vargal and Skullsworn cheese. Vergis of the High Elves does not strike you as somebody that will be god tier when you first look at him, but he is actually decently solid just in general. He's an above average epic, and he's got some super fun strategies like being able to solo the hardest Scarab King that you're going to come across in the Doom Tower. You get him in really good gear, he can actually solo the tough boss, the Scarab King that you will come across. So definitely keep a copy of Vergis on your account. Gnarlhorn is a rare that can look bad at first glance, but actually has an AoE provoke on a 3-turn cooldown that is accessible by hitting 1 book on it, and then is also going to place an increased defense on himself. So that can really help you as you are on a developing account to be able to suppress some of those faction wars waves, and also help you in lots of other situations in the game. Early access to AoE CC provoke. Next, let's head into the Orc faction really quick. I'm going to talk about a couple champions that I end up looking for a lot when I do account takeovers to finish the Orcs faction 21 and that type of stuff. And that is going to be Veteran, first of all, because Veteran is a rare that scales with defense, can be pretty sturdy, has the decreased attack on the A1, and he's also got the AoE chance to block buffs. So he's actually a very accessible champion who is extremely good in faction wars. And then Bloodfeather, the same thing. Bloodfeather, not thought of as being a really good champion, but actually has the big version of decreased speed that decreases turn meter, which is insanely good against boss fights. And then she also can do defense break along with that. So she's going to get the big version of defense down and the big version of decreased speed down, which is insanely good for those boss fight opportunities, most notably in the Orc faction wars when you pair her with something like Veteran. That's a very common thing for people to use when they're trying to finish the Orc faction. Inquisitor is one that does get some talk, but not as much. I don't think people understand how good the A2 is here for nuking. You got attacks one enemy 3 times, will ignore 25% of the target's defense, and will ignore a further 25% for each buff that's on this champion, which you're going to have at least 1 or 2 if you're nuking with him. So then if you get a kill, which is going to be very common, you're going to place a true fear, not just a fear, on all enemies for 1 turn if he gets a kill. So Inquisitor is definitely a nuker that you can take advantage of in getting not only some of that single target, ignore defense, insane nuking, but also getting the true fear debuffs to go along with it most of the time. Torture Helm is a fun one to have. He can do some cool things like soloing the dragon and stuff, mainly because of this passive right here with a 3-turn cooldown that is going to revive this champion with 50% HP when killed. So not a god tier epic or anything, but a fun one to play around with situationally in certain scenarios. Guardian is a rare in the Knight Revenant that can really help with some of those accounts deal with some of the things that the end of the Knight Rev faction is going to be throwing at you with some of those Valkyries and stuff. You've got the A1 here that is going to attack one enemy with a pretty decent chance. You can book this up to a 65% of decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 2 turns. That's pretty crazy for an A1 on a rare, especially in a wave context like the Faction Wars is going to be presenting you. But he also gets the attack 4 times at random with a decent 35% chance of placing a block buffs, which again is amazing for Faction Wars when those Valkyries and stuff are trying to place the counterattack buffs that you really got to find a way to deal with. Guardian can be a more accessible rare champion that will help you immensely in that situation. Renegade of the Knight Revenant is definitely an important one to make sure you keep a copy handy because it's kind of like a budget Prince Kymar, and the ability to decrease cooldown of ally skills is super rare in this game. There are not very many champions that do it. You've got the decreased cooldown of all ally skills by 2 turns. The skill does not affect this champion or other champions with the skill, and the champion will receive damage equal to 30% of their max HP. This will happen even if it kills this champion. But the main thing to know is Renegade can help you out in some of those speed runs to kind of pseudo be a budget Prince Kymar. Then Birinjiri is a new one here from the Shadowkin that's kind of emerging recently as someone who may be able to solo or at the very least to have an insane passive here versus that really difficult boss that is going to place the bombs Bommel in the Doom Tower. This passive here heal this champion by 50% of their max HP whenever an ally or enemy dies. That actually applies to the minions that the Bommel Rhino Bomber boss has and does to your team. So he can actually end up in a scenario where he's able to solo that boss. I do have a video going over that strategy that I'll remember to put right here. So this is kind of a newer one that is coming to take shape in the raid community. Okay, so that does it for the ones that come to my mind when I try to think of some niche champions that may not be very good on tier lists, but you want to make sure you at least keep 1 copy of them on your account. And I didn't go over like Uragrim, who can solo the dragon. You can solo Dragon 25 with Uragrim because obviously Uragrim is a top tier epic. Things like Tomb Lord soloing the dragon, I didn't go over stuff like that because legendaries, you already know you need to be keeping a copy of those. I wanted to go for more niche type discussions where if you're an early to mid game player, maybe you don't know every single champion in raid, this would be a good opportunity to make sure you're not fooding these champions and you're at least keeping a copy of these ones in your vault, because we all know the storage space is a premium, so it's important to know which ones are worth keeping that you should consider having a copy of at all times. And with these ones not grading out well on tier lists usually, there is an opportunity that maybe some players make that mistake. So I thought this would be a fun video to do, and as always, let me know what you think down in the comments. If I missed any or if you disagree with any that I put on here, I really enjoy reading your input as well down below. So don't forget to subscribe on your way out. I have got lots of fun lists and resources coming like this soon. So as always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.